haven't got it. And the honest truth, I will paraphrase. We were just talking about Guillermo del Toro, who was the guy who gave me my break, and he has one of the best quotes for it, which is music and sound design is like Israel and Palestine. You have to kind of try to broker a peace treaty. You have to find some kind of common ground, but it's very difficult because they're constantly at war, ideologically fighting for the same space. And it's totally true. So it's very rare, honestly. I mean, the best thing, you would hope to have a conversation with the sound guys, because I was just talking in another interview. We spend all this time writing this music, and when we're writing it, we don't have the sound effects, so prominent. It's really just dialogue and the music we're writing. And it isn't until we see the final thing and you realize, oh, there's a helicopter in this scene. Like, I never heard the helicopter, and it's like that little dainty piccolo flute line I wrote is obliterated by the sound of this semi-truck or whatever. Obviously, if there's an explosion on screen, you kind of instinctually know to kind of give that space. But it's funny, for the Batman stuff, Bruce Timm, the director, would always tell me, anytime this happens in a lot of Batman things where something's going to come through a window, whether Batman himself is crashing through a window or whatever, and he's always just like, clear that for music. Like, just let that be a whole. There's no point in scoring over that because we're just going to punch it up. So yeah, ideally you want to have a conversation, but it's pretty rare, and you just kind of have to be crestfallen on the mix stage and be like, oh, okay. and just be happy for the times that the music gets to shine. A little bit different. So for Warner Brothers, it was based on The Dark Knight Returns was a graphic novel by Frank Miller, and it was a 2-part adaptation. And that's kind of a collaborative thing. It's not very different from working with the director, because there's still an animation director, but it's the same process. The only difference is with live action, when you're working with live action versus animation, you kind of have to punch up the emotions a little bit more because you're missing that. Just seeing a live actor, there's a lot of like subtlety and nuance that just in a person's eyes that you don't have with animation, so you kind of have to fill those blanks. That's the reality of the world that we live in. The technology. The ironic thing to that is that studios are like, we don't have budget for the orchestra anymore, and but you spend more time trying to make these imperfect machines sound like an orchestra. But it's kind of like CGI to being. If you look at a special effects movie, there's good CGI when it's used as a tool, and there's stuff that just sticks out and looks like a cartoon, but it's more and more commonplace. The funny thing is with the video games, there seems to be more of a place where I think they think of it as they want it to be a very cinematic experience. So the funny thing is, the ironic thing is, the biggest orchestras I've had have been for video games, not for films or television stuff. It is a choose your own adventure. So instead of like for writing a piece of music for a movie, which would normally just be one linear scene, you have to write music for Batman walks in the room. You can go to door number 1 and it goes into another room. Door number 2, you fall off a cliff, and door number 3, you fight guys. So that piece of music has to seamlessly branch into different non-linear scenarios. It's technically in the game's computer. There are layers of music. So there's the first stage is called like an ambient layer, where let's say Batman walks in the room and just creates a tone. That loops because you don't know how, depending on how good the player is, you can be in there for 5 seconds or 10 minutes or whatever. So that music has to loop, and then if you go again to door number 1 or door number 2, that activates another piece of music that loops on top of that music that has to play as another layer that raises in intensity or lowers in intensity.
Oh, wow.
So each one of those layers is another piece of music. It's part of the same piece of music, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So it's like 3-dimensional chess. Yeah, leitmotif that's called. And I love that stuff. I mean, that goes back to the Lone Ranger and the William Tell Overture and of course Jaws and John Williams and Star Wars and stuff. For Batman, like in comic book characters, yeah, definitely. But at the end of the day, it's really the director's call. I'm there to serve. Like they might be like, we don't want to be traditional. We just want to be minimalistic and forget how there's no rules to art. So, but personally, I love when you can hear a piece of music away from the visual and go, oh, Darth Vader just walked in a room, because I can hear the theme. That's like saying, what's your favorite movie? Like, for me, it depends on what day and what time it is. I mean, if you're asking me right now off the top of my head, Raiders of the Lost Ark is great. John Carpenter's Escape from New York is a favorite of mine. Anything by Jerry Goldsmith. Poltergeist is a favorite. Yeah, I mean, but that list, it's usually pretty much the same thing consistently in the top 10, but it'll shift depending on what my mood is.
Right.